Alright, when you first make it to Limgrave, you find yourself in limited resources. When you first start out, at least. And as a new player, literally every weapon you pick up could possibly be hot garbage. You just don't know. You don't know what's good, you don't know what's bad. You don't want to upgrade anything, because you don't know if you're wasting your limited resources. But fear not, I got you covered. This is the best weapons that you can find in Limgrave. Well, at least before the Margit fight, so before the first major fight. And I will organize this by build, so we'll make this easier to comprehend. Quality builds. The Twin Blade. This weapon is found literally 30 seconds from the first step. If you get your horse and you run over to this area and jump over this wall, boom. It's in a chest down here. You win. Congratulations. You can officially become a blender. This thing is a multi-hit, single-button press killing machine. Really great for proccing statuses if you're doing a frost build or blood build or anything that wants to proc statuses. I mean, rot, poison, you name it. Who the hell uses poison? Never mind. This thing's great for fast enemies. It's great for big enemies. It's great for jumping attacks. I mean, honestly, this thing can just do it all. Staggered? Nope, he's still alive. Bear in mind, I've upgraded all of these weapons to +3, so you can really get a range of how powerful they are. The Banished Knight Hrid. You have to run all the way to frickin' Castle Morn and kill Edgar to get this weapon. Yeah, that's kind of a stretch. It's a long trip from the first steps, but you know. You do what you gotta do for a +8 weapon. It literally starts at +8. You can't complain about that.
There's a face I've not seen before. No longer.
It does long-ranged attacks with piercing and slashing. So it's your classic halberd set. It's got an excellent moveset with all the things that you love about halberds, even if it's a bit slow when you swing it. But where it really shines is its Ash of War. It's absolutely great for clearing out low health enemies or anything that staggers a lot, like dogs. Literally, you can become a helicopter. I don't recommend using this on bosses, though. They don't seem to stagger much. The Lance. If you head north from the first step, you'll find a bandit camp, and on top of a rock in the bandit camp, you'll find this giant toothpick. It's literally the only lance in the game. It grants hyper armor in its Ash of War, and if you pair it with Giant Hunt, it's actually really devastating. It has some of the best range in the spear family and also works with the spear talisman. The downside is it doesn't have any swinging AoE attacks, but it was never really designed for such a thing. It's a lance. You're supposed to do piercing damage. It's great in hallways, and that's its best, you know. You also can use it on horse. It's really good. It's got 0 slashing or blunt damage, but if you love the almighty poke, then this is the weapon for you. The Bloodhound's Fang. This weapon is awarded for killing the Bloodhound Knight in the Forlorn Hound Everjail. Easier said than done. If you're absolute garbage like me, you can always run to the south and do Blythe's opening quest.
Who goes there? Carly sent
Then you can just AFK the entire fight. Dude is an absolute unit. The Bloodhound's Fang requires 15 dexterity, which is actually pretty moderate for most new players. But this is absolutely the weapon of choice for PvPers. 99% of PvPers make this their weapon of choice and caress it more sexually than they should. That backflip though, holy shit. I don't know why, but this weapon makes me feel like an absolute ninja. Like, I can't imagine a more mobile build. And look at the range on that sword. Look at how much, this is like a great sword. It's a dexterity-based greatsword. Absolutely insane. That backflip is great for making space. If you like giant swords and also dexterity, this is the weapon for you. Now let's switch to the strength builds, all you frickin' heavies out there. Absolute bottom of the list is the Zweihander. You can buy this at the vendor at the south of the Weeping Peninsula for 350 credits. With a mild strength requirement of 19, look at this thing. It's like a guy who designed spears was asked to make a sword, and this is his answer. This thing is an absolute lawnmower. It has slashing damage with just a massive arcing swing. Look at that. Literally hits everything around you. It weighs an understandable 15 pounds. But that's absolutely acceptable. Its art of war is the upward slash. Absolutely brutal and embarrassing in PvP if you can get it on another player. The R1 is for the big sweeping attack, and the R2 is for the big nasty slam. Literally, this thing can do it all. There's a reason it's been a favorite since Dark Souls 1. It can be a bit slow to swing, but who really cares with this much stagger and range? The Great Axe. Somebody's going to be mad that I put the Great Axe slightly higher on the list than the Zweihander. But trust me, I think you'll understand here in a sec. The Great Axe is found on this caravan outside of Sellen's Tunnel. If you can get it. The Great Axe requires 30 strength to wield, but it only requires 22 if you're two-handing it. So 22 isn't so bad. Where this weapon really shines is its barbaric roar. While the roar itself does absolutely no damage, it does buff your character. If I do an attack without the roar, I do 168 damage. Not bad. If I have the roar talisman equipped, and I do the barbaric roar before I do the attack, 235. And that's only going to increase with more strength. On top of that, when you have the barbaric roar buff on you, your R2 attacks become a 3-hit melee swing, which are great for pretty much any occasion. The Great Axe is only really good for slashing damage, but the absolute damage output of this thing is insane. The staggering effect of this weapon is brutal. Jumping attacks are amazing. If you get hit with this axe, and you lose 90% of your health, you're going to stop and question your life choices. That animation does kind of lock you in. You really can't get away from that. Of course, it's only logical for FromSoft to put a devastating weapon in the hands of a miner. And that's a miner, not a miner. Use some magic, if you have it, to farm yourself up some pickaxes. A pair of pickaxes would be fine. Finding 2 of them shouldn't be too hard. The jumping attacks with these things are absolutely ridiculous. Those nuclear level jumping attacks deliver nothing but hurt feelings. They weigh 10 pounds apiece, so you're going to have to shed some clothes if you're going to want to dual wield it. Either that or wear some really light clothes. And just to show how stupid overpowered these things are, I'm going to go up against the Crucible Knight. Oh, staggered? I'll take that. Yep, all of your fancy armor, beautiful halberd, you're gonna get beat by 2 pieces of iron on a stick. And that's the iron pickaxe. I don't even need a fancy pose to finish this one off. Defeating the Misbegotten in the Morn Tunnels and the Weeping Peninsula will give you the Rusted Anchor. This does not look like the kind of weapon anybody would want to use. You probably end up hurting yourself in the process. It comes equipped with the standard Barbaric Roar, but if you run up here to Stormvale Castle and pick up this Ash of War Wild Strikes, oh man, you're gonna have some fun. Everyone's a badass until someone pulls out a literal anchor as a weapon. Sometimes offense is the best defense. And that's the Rusted Anchor. I never really used this weapon before, but I can see why people love it. The Keen builds, dexterity builds, speed builds. Like, dexterity doesn't mean speed, or does it? The Estock. You don't need an explanation of how to get the Estock, because it's literally a starting weapon for the prisoner class. It's almost like the devs knew no one would pick the prisoner because of that stupid hat. They had to give him crazy weapons to balance it out, right? The stat requirements are practically nothing. It's fast, it's lightweight, it has some of the best range in all the thrusting swords in the entire game. And those charged R2s, the slashing attacks, are an absolute dream. Great for clearing out mobs of enemies. It doesn't have a lot of stagger potential, but that's okay. The Ash of War comes out of this sword so quickly, you can use it in pretty much every scenario. Oh, you have a shield? Oh, I have a sword that can pierce that shield. Absolutely destroy your stagger meter, and goodbye. This is a hard enemy to defeat. Just to prove to you how awesome this blade is, I'll take it up against the hardest boss in the game. Unupgraded. There you go. That's the Estock. The Spear. If you're really looking to try a spear, you could start with the Prophet class. Or, you know, if you don't want to suck, you can always go to Patches in the Murkwater Cave and just kill him. You get his awesome gear set and a +7 spear. It's pretty darn good. What's funny is, most games penalize you for killing NPCs, but FromSoft rewards you for your murderous actions with amazing drip and a +7 weapon. What the heck, FromSoft? What are you trying to teach us here? The piercing R1s are alright. If you need it to do some more AoE damage, you can switch out the Ash of War for sweeping strikes. Probably its favorite feature of mine is the Ash of War. Literally, straight out of the box, that thrusting pierce can stagger even some of the heaviest armors. Look at the range that covers. That's the spear. Thank you, Patches. I love it. The Bandit Curved Sword. Okay, this is going to be a hard sell for some people. This sword drops from a single skeleton in the Weeping Peninsula. Yeah, this is about to be painful. Alright, you do it again. Finally got one. Now I gotta get another one. Once acquired, the dual-wielding jumping attacks can hit 6 times. This is absolutely phenomenal for status build-ups. You want to go a bleed build, any kind of status build you want to do, this is the way to go. The jumping attacks and the running attacks both shred regular mobs and bosses equally. It's like a whole new kind of playstyle. A playstyle bent entirely around speed. Speed, speed, and more speed. If you're new to the game and seeking something fast, or if you know, you're just looking for something different, this is a great choice. Have fun farming. The Guardian Sword Spear. This is another farmed up weapon that you can get from the tree followers in the Weeping Peninsula. But you should know, any weapon that looks like the Nameless King's weapon is going to be awesome. These scale to a very high A in dexterity, which is pretty much an S. They're heavy, so they cause great stagger, they're long range, and the jumping attacks are just scary good. Each one weighs 9 pounds though, so you might have to shed some clothes if you want to be able to move around. For those of you who are saying, ew, a spear without piercing damage, give it a try. I dare you. Give it a try. Put on 2 of these and run around and just mass murder everything. It is a blast. The only thing missing is some heavy metal music. There it is. The one and only Guardian Sword Spear. Magic intro for people who like magic. Lame. Okay, the Broadsword. I know you might think this is a weird start for a magic build, but hear me out. From the first step, you head down the cliff around the giant, and down to this vendor down here, who will sell the broadsword for... Now I know you're thinking, I don't need a sword if I'm a caster. Well, think about it this way. If you're using a staff only, and you're running around and you got these fast mobs that are just jumping at you and doing crazy stuff, you need to be able to react. And if you're out of FP, you won't be able to attack. So having a sidearm would be really nice. You know, as a backup. Unless you want to end up a pancake like this guy. As it turns out, the broadsword upgrades really well with magic. 448 damage. In comparison to the heavy, strength, keen, and quality builds, it does over double that. Plus, it's great for AoE, dealing with those mobs that surround you when your magic can't seem to help. It just makes for a great combination. Use it as a backup and slap on a magic infusion when you get the opportunity, and yeah, you'll go places. The Gleamstone Staff. Another prisoner starting weapon. My god, this is the class to go for, isn't it? While the Gleamstone Staff and the Astrologer Staff both have the same sorcery scaling, the Gleamstone Staff only has a requirement of 10 intelligence. This means it's stronger with less points invested. The early game sorcerer builds are kind of a hard sell. You don't have a lot of choices. But this is the staff that you use when you want to use one spell and go ham with a melee weapon into the later games. But hey, you know what build you want to make, and you be that funky melee mage if you want to. Save your virginity for the frickin' Moonveil, because you know you're going to. The Demi-Human Queen Staff, dropped by, surprise, the Demi-Human Queen in the Weeping Peninsula. Much like the Glintstone Staff, it only requires 10 intelligence to wield, but this is all around the best staff in the game until you surpass 40 intelligence up to 60. It tops out as an S scaling in intelligence at a plus 17. It might not be the prettiest staff to look at, but it'll be your powerhouse through the first 60% of the game. The only thing that outclasses it is Lusat's staff when you reach 70 intelligence, and not by much. It's actually only like 100 points of damage difference. And that's at endgame. Just to prove how good it is, I'll take on the Flying Dragon in the lake, completely unupgraded. It would be a lot harder without the horse, of course. Incantation builds, or faith builds for those people who have, you know, religion. The Golden Halberd. This is the reward for downing the tree sentinel just right outside of the first steps. This is a melee weapon for casters, but unlike the broadsword, the halberd actually has its own build in holy damage. On the downside, it does require 30 strength, but you can two-hand it at 22 strength. Nothing says I love you like a frickin' 20 pounds of holy steel and a Mack truck of stagger damage. Let me fill you in on a little secret. Everything in the beginning game is weak to holy damage. Everything. If you've already dedicated a lot of points into Faith, you're going to have a hard time being able to equip this weapon. But if you know what you're getting yourself into, and you're going for a Faith/melee build, this is probably the direction you want to go. The Ash of War Golden Vow adds holy damage that scales with your Faith. It also decreases your physical damage taken. I'm not a really big fan of the swing speed of this weapon, but the damage is there. It's solid. And holy damage is actually excellent for taking out death birds. The Winged Scythe. You can find it in the 2 moored ruins in the Weeping Peninsula here on the map. I can tell you that I've never ever used this weapon before, mostly because I thought it was ugly. But now that I've used it, holy shit. This thing is actually pretty awesome. The downside, it does require 24 Faith, which is typically way too much for my weak little mind. But once I started using it, yeah. Holy plus bleed damage at the same time? And its Ash of War negates healing for invaders. I couldn't find any footage of an invader trying to use healing, but this is pretty much all I got. Next time I do a Faith build, I'm definitely going to do a run with this thing. It's pretty solid. Makes for a pretty cinematic experience, too, with those attacks. All in all, it's pretty exceptional. I like it. The Dragon Communion Seal. This is an easy place at the number 1. If you use 2 stone sword keys, and risk your life in the Fringe Folk Hero's grave, you can run all the way down this path, past the stupid chariot things, and up this ramp, to defeat this ghostly, banished knight, to get the Dragon Communion Seal. The seal to defeat all seals. The Dragon Communion Seal increases your dragon incantations by 15%. Plus, it outdamages pretty much any other seal until you get the Erd Tree Seal in the Volcano Manor. Now ignore everything I just said and watch me wreck things with dragon incantations. These are some of the best spells in the game, and you can easily create something around it, since you can get them really early. Not to mention, the Dragon Communion Seal has a weight of 0. It weighs nothing. Makes it very versatile for pretty much any build. I'd like to see how much damage that actually did. I should have left the HUD on for that one. Bleed builds, arcane builds, because they're all the same, right? Defeating the invader outside of Murkwater. Okay. What are you doing way over there? You're not helping. What is this? Why are you pacing? Like I said, defeating the invader outside of the Murkwater Cave grants you the Reduvius. It's a fast knife with a long-range Ash of War that also triggers blood loss. I'm sure somewhere on the internet there are people arguing whether a fully upgraded Reduvius is better than the Rivers of Blood. But I say who cares? Rivers of Blood is late game. This is right here, right now, and it has a B scaling in Arcane. Its Ash of War can trigger blood loss on 2 hits. And it's a projectile. Sadly, the range is pretty low, and it needs Somber Smithing Stones to upgrade. But it's still really good for something you can get within minutes of starting the game. I think of all the daggers in the game, this is probably the only one I would even consider using. Even the biggest, nastiest enemies can be brought down with a little bit of blood loss. The Uchi Katana is a starting weapon for the Samurai class. We all knew they were going to favor this one. There have been people who have been crying and begging for a Samurai class since the start of this series. No other class in the game starts with its own bleed weapon, and you can find a second one in the Death-Touched Catacombs, only a few minutes away from the start. It's got low stats requirements, high speed, the ability to dual wield within the first few minutes of the game. This makes it a favorite of a lot of players. Not to mention the natural bleed build, absolutely melts bosses. I mean, what were they thinking? Anybody who says the Samurai class is bad has never played one. There's really only one sword that can stand up to this in Limgrave. And that one would be the Naga Kiba. You thought the Katana was overpowered, you should try this one out. The sad part is you have to kill a friendly NPC, Yura, to get it. Then again, he did kind of leave us to die in the Murkwater Cave, so... This sword kind of has a nasty stigma with online players. It is way too overused. Imagine all the benefits of a katana, but with an extra like 4 feet attached to it. It's lightweight, it's fast, it has blood buildup. It has a unique Ash of War with a piercing Fang. Kind of makes this weapon broken. The only way it could be better if it started at a +5 or something like that, but don't give them any ideas, they might try to do it. Despite being a literal flagpole in your hand, it's just as fast as all the other katanas. The running poke alone is enough to anger anyone to madness without blood loss or status effect. That's it. That's the Naga Kiba. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I might make one for the Lakes of Liurnia or Caelid. And that's all I got for you. Go farm yourself up some weapons. Have fun.